Welcome to Reeves Rants. Thanks for joining me. I got a good video for you today with Dr. Roy Spencer. They run a website monitoring the world's global temperatures almost as long as I've been alive. Since I was 1 year old, they have been monitoring the world's temperatures. And I bring that up for a reason because I'm in my 40s.
We skeptics doing all these mental gymnastics are more likely to be older people.
And anyone who's in their 40s can testify to the fact that we've been hearing about global warming or climate change or whatever the newest way that people like to say it. We've been listening to this and hearing about this for 40 years. And that's important because
We've seen predictions not becoming reality and climate change alarmist predictions being completely false.
what Dr. Roy Spencer is about to bring up is the fact that his website has been monitoring those temperatures all this time, and they aren't adding up with what people are telling us is the fear.
So how could I trust these warmers after so many dud predictions?
So if we're off on our measurements to start with, it isn't creating a basis of actual understanding. So with all that being said, thanks for hitting that like and subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers and I really need your help. Let's roll into it.
Dr. Spencer, thank you so much for your time. First, can you tell us a little bit about your temperature measurements? There are 5 main ones around the world. What makes yours special and what have you found?
Well, the global temperature data set that John Christie and I started over 30 years ago, the advantage to it is that it's from satellites and it covers the whole Earth. There's no other temperature data set that covers the whole Earth.
That's important because it's the only one doing it. And the numbers they have then should be important. And the fact that they have this long set of numbers gives us a very long history to look back on and say, how should we judge our future? Considering the fact that we as human beings like to say, if we don't remember our past, then we're doomed to repeat it. And what we're seeing is a lot of global warming fear running around our world today. And that may not necessarily need to be as elevated as it is.
Maybe now that old friend of conservatives, reality, is going to teach everyone one of her great lessons.
What sort of warming have we had?
And if we do an apples to apples comparison between the satellite measurements and what over 24 climate models have predicted since 1979, our measurements are actually at the bottom end of all those models. In other words, the warming we see is lower than most, if not all, of those models. So there is a discrepancy between what the observations are showing, which shows about an average of 0.13 degrees C per decade warming, which is, a very small number, compared to the climate models, which are generally, twice that at least.
We have staked so much of our financial and energy futures on a dream which we were sold on extraordinarily false pretenses. And the fact that we listened, as I say, to people we should never have listened to is something that we will, I'm sure, be reflecting on, and Germans and others will be reflecting on as the lights go out this winter.
How dare you!
So when you see all this global warming fear, we now can see that the numbers may not be exactly right. So 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 100 or 1,000. It equals 4. And it's important that we focus our information on the real numbers. I'm not saying that his numbers are real, but it definitely draws a question of, are their numbers real? Considering he's running the only website that monitors it by satellite in the entire world all at once. His information isn't necessarily being taken into consideration like it should.
But I do wonder, I have to confess, why people with high analytical abilities, people who are great at analysing things, are more sceptical of global warming preachers. But your kind of measurements have been upsetting to people that want us to believe there's a climate emergency happening, climate crisis, existential. And Google has now demonetized your site, claiming it makes unreliable and harmful claims.
What their website tells me is that all of my whole website basically is unreliable and harmful claims.
This is dangerous because that puts us in a situation where we're disregarding facts in favor of our feelings. You have to admit where you are to know how you're going to get to where you want to go. We saw this with science before, when the government told science that they weren't allowed to prove that the earth was round and that our solar system revolved around our sun. All of that was information that was censored at one time because the government didn't want science to tell people the truth.
I don't know why they decided to do this. I think they have a bunch of liberal arts majors that just heard that the scientists don't like the answers we get, and therefore we're deniers, right?
It's important to point out that fact is that he was so chill about it and it doesn't really matter to him. And there's been too much of that going on the conservative side of political issues. And because of that, we've seen liberalism infect a lot of our world today because conservatism has turned a blind eye and thought, oh, this stuff's just crazy. It's no big deal.
The lack of seriousness about issues that should be really serious.
But it is a big deal that we're allowing censorship to prevent the truth from coming out. The truth is more important than lies that make you feel good.
So the people who run Google, who aren't climate scientists, have punished your website, and you are a scientist, one of the leading climate scientists in the world, measuring the world's temperature. They've punished your site without saying exactly why, what you've done wrong, claiming you are unreliable and harmful. Because, it seems to me, simply because your data indicates the planet isn't warming as much as alarmists have said. Have I got it right there?
Yes, you've got it exactly right. If people like myself don't buy into the narrative that, global warming is not only occurring, but it's going on at a catastrophic rate and we have to do something about it, blah, blah, blah. If you don't go along with that narrative, you get thrown under the bus.
The fact that he has to go along with a government-sponsored truth as opposed to the actual truth is scary.
Everyone is aware of the lie, and we're supposed to just deal with the fact that we know it's a lie and say something that is untrue, which is exactly what happens, which is literally what happens in the book 1984.
And the direction our world is going in, based on all the decisions we're making because of climate change, could potentially kill millions and millions of people.
About 1 billion people are likely to be starving. This is what happens when you only worry about global warming. If global warming is the only thing on your radar, you obviously forget all the other things. And that's what we're going to see this winter when we run out of sufficient fossil fuels. And some people are going to start freezing. We will be much, much more worried about cold waves than heat waves. But that's not how the media present it. And that's why we're in a trouble.
We are making a lot of bad decisions when it comes to this green energy because the people at the top don't realize that their decisions aren't as helpful as they think they are and that they're more damaging than they know. We need to worry as people. The 5 laws of stupidity are in effect fully. Is that we are underestimating how much damage stupid people are doing because we've allowed them to be in positions of power and just believed whatever they believed whatever they said because they're in positions of power, because they have money, because they have a status. That doesn't mean that they're intelligent. And they're creating massive damage because they don't actually know what their decisions are affecting and are so worried about staying in their positions of power that they're appealing to base voters instead of base truth. People need to learn to accept the truth even if you don't like it. This is very scary that we are so censorship driven because we just don't like the truth.
But this is crazy. I'm talking more about the principle, where the social media giants can attack scientists because the results of their science doesn't fit the global warming alarmist cause that activists want to push. Aren't you actually frightened by this development?
Well, quite honestly, no, because they didn't come right out, publicly and say that Dr. Spencer is spreading, nonsense. This was just a case of them not allowing me to put their ads, Google ads, on my website in order to help support the website.
There's an exact example of what I'm talking about him not taking it really seriously. That is the representation of what the entire Republican right, conservatism, and a lot of independents who are more informed than the majority have taken this very calm approach, and it's not a big deal. Oh, the crazies aren't a big deal. Look at how much the crazies have taken over our world. And we all just sat back here and acted a lot of ways like he is. Like, oh, it's no big deal. Oh, it'll just work itself out. We're talking about millions of people. And if you look at what's happening in Europe right now, because of the war and because of their green energy policies and their dependence upon Vladimir Putin and Russian oil, they're going to have potentially millions of people die. But we're allowing fear-driven, stupid sheep to direct the rest of us informed people because we don't think it's a big deal. Because what we're finding is that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The people making the biggest noise are getting the most attention and are changing our world in their direction, and none of it makes sense when we're not using the truth to guide our direction forward. Remember, if we don't remember our past, then we're doomed to repeat it. Us adapting green energy and sustainable energy policies and ways of living our life are better in a proper timing instead of forced upon us when they may not be the best course of action for us right now and may create destruction.
Yeah, well, there's other sites that have also been punished, like What's Up With That, and the money does matter a lot to them. Well, I'm glad you're feeling sanguine about this, but I actually worry that this is the start of something more.
If it's not the start of something more, then it's just definitely more of what we've already seen. Look at with the election stuff. Look at with the Russian collusion stuff. Look at with the Ukrainian war stuff. All these things that we're not allowed to talk about. I'm not saying that I believe any of these things, but we can talk. You still have people on YouTube posting videos about flat Earth. And we disproved that through science hundreds of years ago. Christopher Columbus, if all he did, other than all the bad things everybody claimed he did, he at least proved the fact that the Earth was round. So, for censorship to be going on, for a lot of the stupid things that we see people talking about, and then we saw our government censor all those people, hundreds and thousands of people, for countless decades over the UFO phenomenon?
So what you're telling me is that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are real.
Bill, I think we're beyond that already. The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
We need to be talking about things until we know the actual facts behind it. But this is just another example of censorship and people who believe that they're doing the right things, censoring people, not knowing that that's exactly what tyrannical dictators have used people like the tech industry throughout human history to censor all the rest of the citizens. And that's one of the whole reasons for the founding of this country. So we need to wake up. We need to be calling this out. And we as people need to be pointing out who of these two parties is the worst. Because there is definitely a worse of these two parties and of these two political systems. And one of them is feeding this censorship. One of them loves the idea of censorship. And it's because their policies are bad for our world, bad for America, bad for pretty much every country in the world. And instead of admitting that, they continue to pursue power, not knowing that their decisions will hurt us. This is the definition of stupidity.
No king! The people shall have the right to vote. Even the stupid ones? Yes!
With all that being said, thanks for hitting that like and subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers and I really need your help. Thanks for watching. Later.